identify this individual, have the evidence to prosecute once we get them in custody. Those who...
We have Hammond and...
And the plume of liquid cow manure is spreading through Allegan County waterways after a mechanical failure at a local farm. Investigators say an icy pipe and valve failed, allowing a waste-filled lagoon to leak into county drains. Workers at the farm plugged the busted pipe on Saturday and are continuing to pump out affected drainage ditches. Brad Werfel is the communications director for the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. He says the cleanup response has been swift.
Discovered last Friday, and EQ water specialist responding kind of on a hunch after hours. Went out there, one of our folks went out on his own to take a look and found that there was indeed a huge leak going into a local creek.
The Allegan County Health Department has issued a no-contact warning for Bear Creek and Rabbit River. Manure spills can kill fish by depleting oxygen from the water, as well as spike the growth of bacteria like E. coli. But Werfel says the cold weather should mitigate those dangers, and there is no municipal water intakes off the affected waterways. Support for NPR comes from the Kauffman Foundation, committed to developing teachers who help students achieve at its public charter school in Kansas City, Missouri. Kauffman.org.
From NPR News, this is All Things Considered. I'm Audie Cornish, and now to All Tech Considered. Today, the tricky business of keeping some American technologies out of foreign hands. When a man from Hong Kong met with an aerospace company in Seattle last week, he was really dealing with an undercover Homeland Security agent. Si Ki Chin allegedly tried to buy $85,000 worth of highly specialized accelerometers. He was arrested and charged with trying to smuggle the parts to China. The bust is just one example of a constant U.S. effort to keep certain technologies under wraps. Accelerometers are widely used. You can even find them in smartphones. But as NPR's Martin Kasi reports, the ones Mr. Chin is accused of trying to buy could be used in missiles.
Adam Bruckner is a professor in the Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics at the University of Washington, and he's old school. In his office, he has stacks of paper that haven't been sorted since the 80s, with spaceship models that date back to Apollo. He offers this old-school description of what an accelerometer does.
Simplest approach to an accelerometer is to hang a small weight from a spring, and the spring will stretch or shrink depending on how fast this thing is accelerating, and the little pointer shows you on the dial what the acceleration is.
Back in the 1950s, that basic concept was used to guide missiles around the world. Imagine the challenge of that. Using weights, springs, and spinning gyroscopes, they could steer a rocket all the way to Vladivostok. Nowadays, accelerometers track movement inside your smartphone, and they've also changed.
If you rattle your iPhone, you're not going to hear anything rattling around in it, so it's all solid state, basically.
In some modern accelerometers, movement is captured by micro-electromechanical structures, flexing almost imperceptibly on a silicon chip. In others, special kinds of ceramic or crystal generate power when they're squeezed by a tiny test weight. To engineers, these methods are mostly old hat, but some accelerometers are more impressive than others.
The Chinese can make these crystals or these ceramics just as well as we can. It's what goes with them that allows this device to do what you want it to do.
The Chinese citizen arrested in Seattle last week was trying to buy accelerometers made for spacecraft. Honeywell's QA3000 line, in case you're in the market. Bill Argue runs counterproliferation investigations for Homeland Security. And while he can't discuss the case in Seattle, he says guidance systems in general are very much on China's shopping list.
China is developing, their next generation combat aircraft, in part by taking out U.S. origin goods.
Those accelerometers in Seattle were export restricted, governed by something called the International Traffic in Arms Regulations, or ITAR. It's an acronym that strikes fear in the hearts of law-abiding engineers.
Very bad. Don't mess with it.
Christy Morganson is also on the faculty at the University of Washington, where she often builds projects with these ITAR-restricted devices.
Don't go there. If anybody at the university is ever accused of violating ITAR, the university will not back you. You're on your own, and they're very clear about this.
ITAR is a bright red line. but foreign buyers keep trying. Investigators say they're seeing purchase attempts now through front companies, as well as through recent immigrants who don't always understand the legal risks. Morganson says she doesn't think the law can keep these technologies bottled up forever, but she says it might stall things long enough to allow American accelerometer makers to keep their technological edge. Martin Costi, NPR News, Seattle.
To talk about the ongoing high-tech whack-a-mole game between the U.S. and China, we're joined by James Lewis. He's with the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. And James Lewis, we've heard about parts for missile guidance systems, but what other kinds of technologies are vulnerable to China's commercial cyber espionage?
Really all kinds of technology, ranging from the high-end stealth fighters, missile guidance systems, to the low-end genetically modified seeds, wooden furniture, commercial goods, things like soap formulas. The Chinese will take anything that isn't nailed down.
But given technology today, there's plenty of stuff out there that could be dual use, right? Like a laptop in the wrong hands can be a military weapon or a consumer product. So is U.S. law consistent across the board about deeming something acceptable or not?
No, that's been a problem now for more than a decade, in that the people implementing the law tend to be, relatively conservative, pretty risk averse. For a long time, there was a debate about whether, the PlayStation should be controlled because the chip in it was so powerful, and whether aircraft could be sold to China, commercial aircraft, because they had a powerful navigation chip in it. So we have a system that's a little bit out of whack with reality, but at the end of the day, the Chinese can't make a lot of this stuff, and so they have to try and get it from somewhere.
So help us better understand, what about those particular technologies would be at the heart of that debate?
When it comes to information technology, the progress over the last 40 years has been so dramatic that the supercomputers that they had to design nuclear weapons are now probably less powerful than your iPhone. And so you've got to adjust. You've got to say, here's a chip that 20 years ago deserved to be controlled, and nowadays it's a mass market product, and our system is a little rusty when it comes to moving things. The chip in question on the aircraft